Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VC TV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we're going to be talking today about cryptocurrencies and digital assets as a whole, and why some countries are welcoming while others may be banning digital assets in some form or another. But we also are going to get a little bit into the conversation around mining, around central bank digital currencies, and just digital currencies as a whole, as governments are putting more efforts and conversations around these. We know that in the United States, currently the SEC, along with the US government, are looking at stable coins from a risk and a regulatory perspective and what that may mean for the future. We know that there is the digital euro that is being put together, and there's a link between the digital euro and the digital dollar. We also know that central bank digital currencies are being worked on by a number of countries. We have JP Morgan Onyx, OYNX division that is helping a number of these governments, and a lot of efforts happening in Singapore around that more properly as well. So let's jump right in and introduce today's co-host. But before we do, a big thank you to the Token team, to Maria and Hasmik, for making today's episode possible. With that, I'm your host, and welcome to my outstanding co-hosts who have joined me from around the world to talk about today's subject. Gary Fowler, a little intro and a little background to those who may not know you.
Yeah, sure. Great to be here. Great to see some friends, smiling faces. My name's Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur investor. I love artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and cryptocurrencies. I've done 17 companies, been involved in 2 unicorns, original management team at Click Software, sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai. I'm writing a lot. In fact, my next article in Forbes is on tokenization and loyalty. I've written 160 articles now in the last 14 months. And, involved in radio and podcasts, done about over 500 of them in the last year. Just great to be here with you one more time. I'm also the CEO and co-founder of GST Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in Silicon Valley.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Gary, and congratulations on the introduction into radio from what you've been doing in the podcasting and interviewing space such as this, and your shows as well. I highly recommend everyone check out Gary's shows in GSDV as well. David, welcome to the show as well. A little intro, a little background.
Certainly, Kyle. Good to see you again. Good to see the rest of the panelists. So I'm David Powell. I'm president of ProChain Capital. ProChain is a crypto-focused hedge fund. We invest in tokens, both long and short. We're also invested in equities, both long and short, in the asset class, in the space, and the concept of blockchain payments, digitization of assets, and so forth. And then we also have a small portion of our net asset value invested in some venture stage investments, also associated with the industry. So the bottom line is that we focus on substance over form. We're happy to go ahead and invest in all forms of type of investment activity, but simply with the underlying idea that we're going to go ahead for the benefit of our investors and generate the greatest adjusted return that is happening from the growth in the industry.
Wonderful. And thank you very much, David. I know today's topic is very near and dear, as you and I have spoken on this together on a few previous episodes. So it's exciting to kind of continue this conversation as things have advanced over the last few weeks, and more importantly, the last few days as well. And we'll get into that again here in just a moment. Julio, welcome to the show as well. You are on mute. Just want to make sure you see that, and a little intro, a little background for everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm Julio Marquez. Hello from New York, where we're experiencing a bit of a summer weather out there with a storm. I hope it's not too noisy. I love the topic because here at New York Bay Capital, we've been delving in and out of crypto as it's become a thing over the last 5 years or so, and especially in Latin America. We are a we're a financial advisor based in New York, but with offices and representation throughout the American continent, from Toronto all the way to Buenos Aires, Santiago, and going through Lima, Brazil, Ecuador, Colombia, Panama, and of course Mexico. And so we've been following the crypto phenomenon as it is welcomed or not in various countries of Latin America. And so that's why we're here, because we know Latin America, we know the economy of Latin America, and we know the challenges and difficulties that cryptocurrencies are bringing to the region.
Wonderful. And last but not least, we do have a few other guests who have joined us. They'll be introduced here in just a few minutes, but let's jump right in with Anuj, you're there. My apologies. I know you're
so sorry,
with power issues. No, please. It is the age of technology. We all have batteries that need to be recharged, so no stress at all. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Thank you so much. So yeah, quickly introducing myself. Being a startup founder for a decade, started 3 startups in the past. At present, I'm working at Yellow Sapphire Technologies, where we primarily work with fintech, medtech, and gaming organization, basically helping them develop new initiatives, new pilot projects, and then work on improving their existing systems. Along with it, I'm also a partner at World Business Angel Forum, where we help promote global financial inclusivity, and I also work on a few angel deals across Israel and in India.
Wonderful. So let's jump right in. As everyone is here, and we've all talked about this in different ways, shapes, and form. But why are some countries pushing back on digital assets as a whole, while others are welcoming it? Julio mentioned Latin America. We have notably what's happening in El Salvador now is talking potentially about doing their own stable coin. They're also focusing heavily on mining. I mentioned some of the countries that are pushing forward with their digital currencies. We also have what's happening in the Caribbean. So looking at Jamaica, Dominican Republic, and then also Bermuda and the Bahamas, and some of the things that is happening down there around the sand dollar, and that being pushed into realization potentially at the end of this year and furthermore into 2022. We also have more central bank digital currencies and others coming into play next year. So David, why don't you set the stage for us? Why are some countries pushing back on digital assets while others are welcoming them in? But maybe let's start with while they're pushing back.
Can I take the other topic first and then back into that one?
Yes. All right. Let's start with that. So why are some countries welcoming digital assets?
I think because they see fundamental benefits. To me, one of the most exciting aspects of cryptocurrency in its true sense is the fact that the unbanked will get banked. Folks that have never had access to what we know as traditional financial institutions will now be able, through the advent of technology, both in terms of the hardware and the software in their phones or mobile devices, coupled with digital, call it cash or digital currency, they will now be able to essentially enter into the world that has been closed to them. And I think for those countries, the risk-reward equation is so stark. It's clear that they are going to be able to benefit a very large portion of their population, and therefore, come what may in terms of the risks, they really don't care. It's a real opportunity to increase the quality of life in ways to that part of the population. I think as you go across the developed world spectrum, it becomes a less clear risk-reward opportunity. And because there are traditional financial systems, there are very involved central banks, legislators, all sorts of infrastructure as it relates to financial systems, securities systems, commodity systems, and so forth. The risks multiply as to what the advent of digitization of all those things means for the existing systems. In addition, query whether the same benefit that's going to be gained in those countries where there are a lot of unbanked, whether that same type of benefit is going to be gained in, places like the United States, where, I'd say the overwhelming majority of the population is banked. There isn't, a huge barrier to entry in terms of getting banked. And so therefore the upside, may not be the same. In addition to all this risk reward, financial, talk, population talk, there is also the issue of privacy, and things that we take for granted here in the United States in terms of civil liberties, right to privacy, and things like that. And, whether cryptocurrencies are totally, on the one hand, maybe, totally anonymous, untraceable, which they're not, but, you could believe that myth, or it's out there. And on the very other end of the spectrum, the fact that there could be a digital currency that is controlled by, or the government has, direct transparency into, government authorities may have, at least for people that value civil liberties, may have too much information as a result of that. So there is also, I'd say a big issue. That's kind of how I see the stage.
Yeah, and so real quick before I come to you, Gary, next on this, one piece of news that was put out there as a headline. I haven't had a chance to read much into it yet, but there was some pushback by the U.S. government. Again, this is just a headline for those that are listening. The U.S. government was pushing back on those Olympians that would be participating in the upcoming Beijing Olympics from using the digital yuan. To some of the facts that you just pointed out there, David, as well, and what may or may not be traceable or collected during that time. Again, just a headline, don't have much more than that surface level information at the moment, but that was one of the things talked about. And that followed the release of China's white paper on the digital yuan as well. Gary, any additional thoughts to add on to David's points as to why some countries are welcoming while others are pushing back?
Yeah, I mean, so, I take a little bit different slant. In fact, I talked about this yesterday on iHeart. And one of the things that we need to really look at is that the world has fundamentally changed over the last 18 months. We thought about this digital transformation that's upon us and COVID, but we had to look at things differently. And one of the things that digital currencies, cryptocurrencies allow us to do is to be able to really level the playing field out, from my perspective. Because as we know, intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities aren't. And so we're seeing resistance for governments that want to keep control. They want to be able to influence economic policy. For them, the cryptocurrencies are a bad thing, if they're not theirs, because it can't really influence policy. And the other thing, because of scams, I mean, the scams were up, 40-70% in 2020 and projected to be more this year. So there's been a lot of scams, and I think the governments are using the scams and the nefarious nature to be able to say that they need to have more control. But quite frankly, I think what's going to happen is the playing field's going to be made level, and that we're going to start to see this go in areas that have really put up roadblocks, because it'll really force the issue. People want to be able to trade. With its digital economy and the way we're online, the way we do business today, think about cross-border transactions for real estate. How much of a pain it is to be able to do a cross-border transaction. Now we talk about being able to use your cryptocurrency, to be able to use blockchain to verify the transaction and the smart contracts. Net, it just makes our lives a bit easier. But you're right, people are going to be resistant.
You're absolutely correct. And Gary, I wanted to follow up on one quick point there. Security, something we've spoken about previously. I mean, when security and things like new technologies such as quantum are applied to the future of cryptocurrencies and digital assets, do you think that plays a role into governments pushing a little bit back on this?
Well, I mean, quantum by 2022, quantum computers can crack could theoretically crack Bitcoin between 2022 and 2027. So this is a whole other story, Kyle. This is a whole other show, right? But I mean, when we have that massive amount of processing power, as I've said, you can do something with if they're 100 million times faster. An average quantum computer 100 million times faster than a supercomputer. What that means is that what would take 10,000 years on a supercomputer today takes 200 seconds on a quantum. Now add artificial intelligence unsupervised and imagine what the possibility is to crack literally all kinds of coding that you have out there. We've got to redefine the way that we have our cryptocurrencies. We need to redefine the blockchain. Everything becomes vulnerable, and it's already happened, right? By the way, look at all this ransomware that's out there. I just spoke at the United Nations last week, and we got challenges, but the good news is we are resilient. The good news is there's democratization of opportunities. It's going to happen. It's just not a matter of if, it's when. And the governments that are out there that are really blocking the cryptocurrencies are going to have to think differently.
And speaking of that, Julio, go ahead, and then Anuj, I want to come to you next around what's happening in India, as there's been a lot of back and forth. But Julio, to your point, as I saw you unmuted.
Oh, thank you. And I wanted to say hello to Irina, who just walked in. Well, I think governments, the kinds of governments that I know in Latin America, they initially have a knee-jerk reaction. And the knee-jerk reaction, if you're a government, is to ban something because you don't understand it, can't control it. Now, when you go into the specifics that have already been discussed, for example, is it a tool that can help your monetary policy? The answer is not really, because you don't control it. Bolivia, Ecuador were very quick to ban cryptocurrencies, and they banned them through acts of Congress. It's not necessarily the executive that runs everything in every country, right? There's always a legislative piece or judicial. And so it was acts of Congress, Congress people basically thinking, let's protect, and we protect the population by banning things that we don't understand, or that the population may not understand, or they could be victims to scams, like Gary said. And, this is understandable. So the first thing they do is they ban things, but then I believe that governments are going to little by little understand that cryptocurrency can really be their friend. Just like it can provide financial inclusion, like David was saying, in terms of getting the unbanked banked. You can also start gaining some advantages by incorporating cryptocurrency into the economy. The first thing I saw, for example, in Ecuador recently, is that even though the cryptocurrencies are banned, they are now allowing, or they're about to allow, banks to offer one service, which is custody, right? Mm-hmm. Custody is the first service in a banking system. It's the very first reason why people needed banks was for custody, for safekeeping. You don't want to keep all your gold in your house, so you put it in a safe at the bank that is heavily guarded in a big building, right? So custody is really the first wave of a banking service that a population needs. And with all of the problems that are well documented about cryptocurrency, people losing their keys or being scammed, whatever, custody is the right first service to offer to the population. You got Bitcoin, it's dangerous for you to keep it, or it's risky. Why don't you keep it at your local bank? And we're going to allow the bank not to necessarily, offer loans in cryptocurrency yet, but certainly you can safely keep your crypto there. You have to share your key with the bank, but if you lose it, it's okay. It's like a safe deposit box. And more importantly, the bank is going to be reporting to the government exactly how much crypto someone has and how it moves. And that's valuable information for the government. So the government is going to use it as an information gathering tool. And when they see that these accounts are beginning to grow, then they're going to start allowing banks to offer other services like levering the crypto, trading the crypto, etc. So overall, though, I mean, this would be like trying to buy cell phones when all we had was fixed line phones, and the local phone company or the government that tended to run telephone businesses said, oh, no, we don't want this technology, it's dangerous, we don't control it, let's ban cell phones. Eventually the population is going to have them anyway, whether legally or illegally, they're all going to acquire it, and that's what's going to happen with crypto. So at some point you just have to step in, realize that there's a reality there of people keeping their savings in crypto because they have great advantages, and allowing services to happen. So going forward, I'm very optimistic that in most countries, unless perhaps in the worst of dictatorships, you're going to have more and more ability to legally transact with cryptocurrencies and offer services.
Yeah, and it's a good point. I mean, we saw BNY Mellon along with State Street today come out, along with a few other additional banks that were unmentioned at the time, putting together a joint venture, new program, or excuse me, a new platform for trading. We have Bank of America offering it up. We've got several other banks. David, you and I have talked about this on the financial front. More of these institutions are opening this up as well. And we'll come back to that. Anuj, talk to me a little bit about India. What's happening around India? The one side to the next side to the next side, we can't seem to decide. So why are countries like India accepting, but then also pushing back on digital assets? And then Arena, I'll close out with you.
So I think the answer on that is pretty simple, mate. We are going in a way which is sort of slightly different from El Salvador. They have a very small population, so they were more open to accepting Bitcoin. They wanted to adopt a new age technology. Comparatively, India as an economy is a huge economy. And unlike other economies that are in the same range as us, we have a huge population. So it was only in 2018 that the government preemptively decided that, hey, we don't understand this yet. As said by multiple panelists before me, that if the government doesn't understand anything, they try to push back on it. And then their first instinct as a knee-jerk reaction is blocking it. The reason given by them was fairly simple. We do not identify cryptocurrency as a form of currency. Yes, we can say it's a digital asset that may inflate or deflate in value, but it's certainly not a currency. And understanding that users need to be protected, that they may be prone to scams, having that new age technology, which no one really understands, could be a huge vulnerability for the people. They decided to block it. And in hindsight, it kind of paid off as well. I mean, it was only in 2018 itself that once they blocked cryptocurrency and any blockchain technology, that suddenly you had a couple of fraud companies that were trying to run a Ponzi scheme out of it, that were basically arrested, and the investors got their money back. There was a very famous $300 million scam. There have been other cases where people have been trying to run some fake websites, trying to sell some tokens which are basically worthless. And changing that, it was their primary objective. Yes, of course, there are some companies that are trying to do some actual business, that are trying to make some amazing technologies out of it, some amazing products out of it. And for them, they pushed back on the government. They went on to the Supreme Court, filed a case against it, realized that their legal rights are being blocked with this ban. And as a result, it has been overturned. Yet that hesitation still remains. The scams, the fear of the unknown, it's still there. That's why I believe it was until March or April this year, the biggest bank in India, State Bank of India, they practically sent out a memo to all of their customers saying, hey, you can't use our debit cards and our credit cards on any crypto platforms. If you do that, we are going to block your cards, period. The reason that they gave was, again, that 2018 Supreme Court Reserve Bank memo stating that they are banning the currency. Mm-hmm. Although still not valid, it was a good enough excuse for them. Mm-hmm. And yes, the government is making clarification on it. We realize that we cannot have a blanket ban on all of these technologies. Yet at the same time, that hesitation and the need to organize the sector to make sure that we regulate it from early on itself, unlike the software industry in India, unlike many other sectors in India, which were allowed to flourish early on before they were regulated. we are realizing that there has to be a regulation in place first, and then we got to work on making sure we allow people to more freely enter into the market. Will there be a ban in the future? I highly doubt that. It's definitely infringing upon people's right to do a business. It's infringing upon people's right to make a living. So I don't think any Southeast Asian country will have that. But take Digital One for an example. The government wants to adopt that kind of a technology. They want to have more digitized system that they can control themselves, where they can track how everything is going, ergo preventing any illegal activities or preventing any nefarious plans early on itself, not to mention the age-old problem of counterfeit currency. Yet that solution is not yet there. We have a good product, we have just not figured out how to best use that scenario. And then until that's figured out, there's still going to be some pushback on it.
Well, and we saw a little bit of that, whereas the Bank of India and the government actually got in partnership with JP Morgan and Onyx, their division, focused on this effort as well. So, Arena, sum it up for us. I mean, what are your views as you've kind of heard everything, but for the audience, what are your thoughts on why some countries are accepting and while others are pushing back around digital assets?
Great question. It's great to be back. I missed all of you guys, so thank you, and I apologize for being late. I think that when I think about the subject, what comes to mind to me really is, obviously we have the regulatory infrastructure that we've been talking about, and I agree with all of you guys about the kind of the needs. I think we're arriving to something completely new for this whole technology, and it is a better understanding of what this tech can do, and basically application of this technology to ensure full control of a country. And what I'm talking about here is China. I don't know if you guys spoken about China or not, but this is where all of our eyeballs are right now, right? Because there is kind of the scammers doing things, and and non-scammers, and the business world, and kind of the whole innovation application. And then there's an application by a totalitarian government to use this to completely remove any freedom that are left in its citizens' hands. And I think that that's going to be a big driving factor in the future. In the next 18 months, we're going to see how things are working out. It is clear now that there is a huge exodus of basically money and people that's happening from China. But nonetheless, it's stopping them from going forward with their centralized currency. And the kind of key aspects to think about why does that matter is because it gives them the ability to see exactly where every single penny is spent. It gives them ability to be able to say that, this is the money for you to go out to a restaurant, right? And now all of a sudden that money has disappeared from your wallet, and just basically kind of tracking everything. In order to be able to do, you have to outlaw everything else. And so we are going to see how successful they are. And if they are successful, I believe that we will see more governments stepping forward with kind of a similar application, maybe on the different levels of pure control. And I think that's when we can expect basically see that, as you would, conflict between making, Bitcoin illegal and other cryptocurrencies illegal as well, right? So it's a little bit dire. It's boom. Let's talk about China. I missed all of you guys. I do, however, believe too that it's all right. It's just a point. It's just kind of how things are happening, right? We're going to need to see what countries do, where your rights matter, where your freedoms matter, where we value education, and where we value kind of this ability to create better future, and then how it's going to work on the opposite side of freedom. And I do believe that that will be the turning point for the totalitarian countries, is where I think that it will be really obvious, because people can take only so much. And my hypothesis and my vision of and version of the reality that we're going to have as a result of it is going to be further freedom in those countries. So because again, the highlights of different opportunities that it provides is definitely high, and all it takes is a bull run, okay? All it takes is a bull run for everybody to all of a sudden see that drastic change. So if you're a country that's laying in infrastructure right now for, facilitating Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and really Bitcoin too, right? Then all of a sudden, in short 3 years, and my hypothesis, again, we're still going to see some bull this year, but people don't believe me. We'll see. But no matter what, halvening will come very, very soon. And then post that halvening will have the run. And in that short period of time, those countries will find themselves in a very comfortable positions comparing to those that didn't do it.
Yeah. And David, I saw you had a point. So did you want to add on to that, or?
Yeah. I'd just like to quickly say, with respect to China, I come from very early on in my career, a legal background. And certainly as a person who's been in markets generally, over the course of my career, in terms of China's, regulatory and legal environment and policy, certainly, it's something that is always uncertain. So I don't think, that we can take any move made by China as the final move or decisive of what the policy is going to be going forward. I do agree that China has squandered a lot in terms of, outlawing the mining, but certainly they have their reasons, that may stretch far beyond, cryptocurrency. It may relate to environmental activity. It may relate to energy usage. It can be all sorts of things, frankly, wrapped up into one, and exactly who inside the government is making these decisions and why, I think is something that we, very well may never know. And then in terms of, more philosophically, in terms of what Irina was talking about, we've found and seen over time that totalitarian regimes go ahead and take innovations and co-opt them, potentially to make their citizens even further subjected to, the government's will and the government's control. So, even though we think that technology, right, we've seen mass demonstrations in countries, we've seen, Facebook and allowing people to get together. But if Iran, North Korea, China, whatever one of those actors you want to choose, at the end of the day, they know how to take a very heavy-handed fist, to all these innovations and to turn it on their citizens, if they choose to do so. I don't think that goes ahead and splits either way, positive or negative, on the space, in terms of cryptocurrency activity. I just think that there is going to be, a furtherance of the agenda, regardless of what issue, those governments and frankly our governments on the other side are going ahead and confronting. I just think, you kind of need to be, I think, conscious of that. Certainly, happy to be proven wrong. But I think that's the way things have gone in the past, and probably the way things will go going forward.
Thank you, David. In terms of where everyone can find you to continue the conversation, I want to come around for everyone for closing thoughts, conscious of time. So where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation, David?
I'm at LinkedIn, David Towell, David D. Towell, and then on Twitter at David D. Towell.
Wonderful. Thank you. Julio, any closing thoughts, and then quickly, and then where can everyone find you online along with New York Bay Capital?
Online, it's easy to find us at nybaycapital.com. And through our website, you can reach us. But I'm also on LinkedIn, as long as you say Julio A. Marquez, because there are a lot of Julio Marquezes in the world. But if you do Julio A. Marquez, New York, that'll get you to the right place. Closing remarks. Irina opened up a whole subject, which I wish we had a lot more time to discuss, right? The whole idea of freedom and liberty in China, and are they helping or hurting the cause? to put it mildly. So I wish we could stay and discuss that topic for another day, but certainly we're always welcome to discuss any topics, and most importantly, we're always looking for entrepreneurs with good ideas who are starting up companies, tech, sometimes not so tech, but we welcome that. We have a little fund. And this is just an overall invitation for anybody to write to me, whether it's through the website or on LinkedIn, to present projects. Crypto is certainly an area we look at. Tokenizations, we're doing some really interesting things there. And so, please reach out, and we'll give you a quick yes or no and an analysis about your business. So I think that's one of the great values of LA Token VCTV, that it puts us in touch with entrepreneurs. So don't forget that aspect of this meeting. But great seeing you all as usual.
Thank you very much, Anuj. Quick closing thought, and where can you be found?
So, quick final remarks. I mean, I've always been a strong believer in blockchain technology. I think it's one of the technology. It's one of the main technologies in the future, along with quantum computing, and in AI and in machine learning. Yet there is still so much we don't understand. As an engineer, it's very easy for us to get lost in our vision, get lost in the product that we are building right now. Let's try not to do that. If there are any smart entrepreneurs out there that are working on a product, I genuinely recommend always take your user into account, always think from the user's perspective as well as to how you should build the product and how will the consumers actually use it. And then don't get blinded by it. There's still a long way to go for the blockchain community, and I'm sure the future will be best and bright for us. If you'd like to find me online, you can always look me up on LinkedIn, Anuj Chauhan. It's fairly easy to find me. Or you can go on to yellowsapphiretech.com and drop me an email.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anuj. Arena, you're already unmuted. You knew I was coming to you. So Arena, quick closing thoughts. Where can you be found online?
Oh goodness, so sorry guys. I had a quick thing I was addressing, so thank you so much. Okay, my closing thoughts are this about China. Okay, China has manipulated crypto markets for the longest time. And sorry, and 11 times have they? My bad.
Arena,
yes.
I'm gonna come right back to you.
Yes,
Gary. Closing thoughts. Where can you be found?
Yeah, sure. This digital transformation is upon us. We need to have the cryptocurrencies allow us to be able to be faster, more effective, and potentially more secure. We are in the beginning of the crossing the chasm. There's a lot of cryptocurrencies. Make sure you pick the right one to do the right thing. But it is upon us. Governments that are out there are going to have to come up with a strategy to deal with the cryptocurrencies, because their citizens are going to start to demand it. It does equalize the opportunity, and that's what it's all about, the democratization opportunity. You can reach me, Gary Fowler, on LinkedIn. You can see me on Twitter, and you can check out my shows, GST Presents, Silicon Valley AI and Tech, and also the Founders Report here on VCTV. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you very much, Gary. And Arena, closing with you. Quick closing thoughts, and where can you be found?
Yes. So closing thoughts. I want to go back to China a little bit, and I just really want to accent the seriousness of because this subject really talks to me. Where it's the highlight of the whole cherry on the topic of today's conversation. They've outlawed Bitcoin 11 times. Okay, and so what they've done usually has been, they outlaw, the market crashes, then they come back again, and they make it legal again, and so they've been biggest players in the cryptocurrency for a very, very long time. The reason it's different is because they are proceeding with their centralized cryptocurrency, and their system is very robust. And this time we shall not disregard, what they're doing there, and make sure that we keep a close eye on it, and also building the infrastructure on our side to make sure that things like chip manufacturing, we need more US silicon here produced in America, not just not just for the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies mining, but for cars and everything else. So just keep an eye on China, and remember that we are kind of in the turning point of making sure that how things are going to go. Are we all going to turn into a totalitarian society and global society, or are we actually going to demonstrate that the freedom actually prevails? So that's my closing thoughts. Yay. And you can find me anywhere. Just Google Irina Litchfield. And I'm always happy and available. And I'm glad to be back to VCTV. I promise now I'll be more regular.
Oh, wonderful. Well, happy to see all of you as always, and thank you for your thoughts and insights on today's topic. And as everyone mentioned to our audience, we will continue the discussion around today's topic, and we'll get into not just countries, but also governments, federal, state, and local, as we're starting to see activity at all levels on a global scale, whether that's things like city coins that are being put into place, whether that's state level type decisions or infrastructure changes, etc. We'll continue this conversation. But lastly, make sure you check us all out on social media and our respective websites, including myself, your host, Kyle Ellicott. We'd love to continue the conversation. If you're building anything in this or surrounding areas, do reach out. Please add context where you heard us, where you met us, and what you would like to continue the conversation about as well. And a big thank you to the Token team, to Maria and Hasmik for making today's episode possible. With that, everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow with more VCTV. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Kyle. The sun has come out.